what would you say as a capital raiser is your biggest frustration as it pertains to the 1031 exchange? Bringing capital from businesses or cryptocurrency or multi-million-dollar exits. What would you say is your biggest frustration that you've seen for the clients and the investors that you serve?
For 1031 exchanges, I guess the biggest frustration is the paperwork, the time frame it takes to actually do it. Because timing's everything with the 1031. You got 45 days to find something, 180 days to close on it. And if you don't meet those goals, then the 1031 blows up and you got to pay all the taxes. So to top it all off, the time frame that they give you, even if you found a deal immediately and you had all these things immediately to happen and take place, it still ends up taking quite a bit of time to finish out structuring the entire 1031 exchange, depending on how you're going to set up your own syndication if you choose to do a syndication and bring the 1031 money into it, which is kind of what we're talking about as capital raiser. So we had one guy come in. He decided that he wanted to invest with us with his 1031 funds in like March or April of 2023. And we didn't actually get the transaction closed and paperwork completed until like November of 2023. Like it just takes a long time for that money to hit. So if you're like quick turnaround, you're like, oh yeah, I got this new deal that I need to raise like $20 million for, but I'm not worried about it. I got some investors that got some 1031s I could roll in and get this deal closed in 30 days. You forget about it. It's not going to happen in 30 days. You need to have a long runway, and a lot of sellers aren't willing to wait that long. So how do you structure it to where you have the ability to wait that long? Well, for us, what we had to do was we basically had to, luckily this particular transaction didn't need his extra money. He ended up investing about $1.5 million into the deal. But luckily the $1.5 million that this particular investor gave us through this 1031 was for the development of the property. So we were able to close on the property before then, actually buy the land. And then when his money finally hit, we were able to, finish out the development like we had planned with the money that he was investing. So I'd say the biggest struggle is just time, dealing with all the paperwork. Everything's got to be perfect. Everything's got to be right. And then confusion too. So like you have investors that might have 1031 exchanges and maybe they've never done this before. They've done a 1031, but they've never invested into a syndication. So now they're like, all right, well, how do I invest it into the syndication? And now that it's educational complications of you having to educate them on how this actually works, and they're confused and they don't know what's going on, and all the paperwork doesn't make sense, and they've got thousands of questions, and confused mind says no. So before you know it, this money you thought you were going to get is no longer yours just because you couldn't properly relay how it's actually going to work and how it's going to benefit them. So I'd say those are the two biggest struggles that I've personally faced with 1031s.
Yeah, and I think most people have too. We call it the shotgun wedding, right? You're trying to engage in 45 and married in 180, and the timing becomes a real pressure point. And second, just to add, business sales, cryptocurrency, they don't qualify for 1031 exchange, nor do primary homes or stock sales, right? We just did a $13 million, this is a car wash in San Diego. So that one worked fine for our strategy called the Deferred Sales Trust. They didn't want to go back into another asset. We said $11 million in Colorado for a business sale and a commercial real estate property. But just first of all, you've got to make sure that the actual strategy will work for the property or the asset that you're selling. And then number two is time, right? You got to have time as your friend. The only way to get time as your friend is to not be under these strict guidelines of having to go into like-kind replacement property in a short period of time. And that's where we have a strategy called the Deferred Sales Trust. I'm curious if you've ever heard about this thing before. We call it the Netflix or the Blockbuster way of exit planning, and or the Netflix or the Blockbuster way of raising capital. Most folks are either doing through retirement accounts or just single investors after they pay the tax, or trying to carve out some kind of TIC into the deal, which again, like you said, it could be like a hole in one, everything lined up. But have you ever heard of this thing before? I'm curious what your thoughts are on it.
Is this like a DST, like a Delaware Statutory Trust?
It's not. And that's the thing. A Delaware Statutory Trust is part of Blockbuster. You guys remember going to Blockbuster when you were young? You had the Hollywood video on the corner. Right. Well, that's what the Delaware Statutory Trust is. Just another Hollywood video to a Blockbuster. They're simply a 1031, like-kind replacement syndication, if you will. Mostly is what those are. This is completely different. So this is a Deferred Sales Trust. It's based upon an installment sale that you can couple with the trust and essentially sell to a trust and receive back a promissory note. But then the trust itself can invest into whatever it wants, whenever it wants. and whatever you want, really what it comes down to, right? So it's very flexible. You can diversify. You can go into liquid investments. You can go into securities if you want to. You can go into hard money lending. You can develop with the capital. And so super flexible, but typically multi-million-dollar exits. And then, of course, a lot of folks want to go into syndications, right? Or want to diversify into a mobile home park syndication and a multifamily and maybe do some development. But all of this together, there's no timing restrictions, so you can dollar cost average.
That is cool. No, I haven't heard of that specific niche so it's kind of like a 1031, but it's not underneath the same umbrella, but it accomplishes the same goal.
Yeah, you got it. You eliminate the need for the 1031 exchange, right? So no timing restrictions, no like-kind replacement requirement, no debt replacement requirement, no 45-day 180. You can put into any kind of investment you want. We did $13.5 million of crypto exits for 2 clients before the crash. We call it the best kept secret your CPA's never heard of, right? As it pertains to capital gains tax. And it's part of actually my story. Started at Marcus and Millichap selling multifamily properties, grew up with my parents in the Bay Area, building houses. And we thought the 1031 exchange was the end all be all. Then I had the market crash and my wife and I were making, nothing at the point, right? Moving with my brother to a small condo, working side hustles at Cheesecake Factory. And that became kind of our foundation of learning about this in the 2008 crash. And over time, we learned about the strategy and we're going, if people knew about this, it would change everything. And so now we work with some of the top multifamily syndicators in the country to educate them and their tribe about how to do this, right? And so now, being that you are, becoming one of those, right? I just see it's a great way to help a lot of people. Yeah. And then you couple that with the $84 trillion transfer that's happening over the next 20 years. It's the battle for the wealth of America, whether the government's going to have it, people are going to be taxed, or folks that are going to use it to build houses or multifamily investments to solve the housing crisis through creative tax deferral strategies. We call that tax flow, not just cash flow, right? And then connecting those with a strategy that gives you time on your side. And that's really the key denominator here. It's like back to building your house on sand versus solid rock. We believe if you can build an investment strategy based upon a time strategy that's flexible and not restrictive, like a 1031, that changes the entire wealth building opportunity. Wow.
That's pretty cool. I'd love to learn a little bit more about that.
Yeah, cool. And by the way, if anyone wants to learn more, you can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. We've got a new book that just got released called Building a Capital Gains Tax Exit Plan, hit #1 bestseller. Kevin here, different Shark Tanks in the book, pretty cool. And other people, really smart people like Josh are in the book who are talking about multifamily, different investments. So check that out, Building a Capital Gains Tax Exit Plan on Amazon.